As tensions rise between the U.S. and China, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin is taking a stand against the CCP. He banned TikTok on state devices, and he's backed a bill protecting farmland from being purchased by the Chinese government. Governor, it's great to have you in the studio.
Great to be with you all. It's like old home week here. It's really fun to be with you.
Nice to see you.
Jacket's gone. We like that. Some of us like that. I understood some farmland concerns in some of the western states. Do you have sensitive places in Virginia that are they buying? They don't want to grow some corn.
I mean, this is a real issue, and let's just step back. I mean, of course, what we've seen is the CCP and the Chinese government become much more aggressive about progressing their strategy, which is to dominate the world. Let's just be clear, and they're going to do it at the United States' expense. And they're using every arsenal element that they have, from military coercion to economic coercion to surveillance, and it's showing up everywhere. And yes, in our own farmland, I mean, we have the Pentagon, we have Quantico, we have the largest naval base in the world, we have Wallops Island that's launching rockets 10 times a year, and they're surrounded by farmland in some certain cases, not Pentagon.
Is that the farmland they're interested in?
And we're not going to allow these bad actors to buy this farmland. And it was bipartisan.
Are they shopping around there?
We know that there's been substantial purchases of farmland across the United States.
Yes.
And there has been farmland purchases in Virginia. And we're just not going to let it happen. And I find it's much better to close the barn door before the horse gets out than to let the horse get out and then wring our hands and say, what are we going to do?
I mean, you throw in Balloon Gate, you look at the islands, you worry about Taiwan, you look at the partnership with Putin. None of it makes me feel secure about our relationship with China in the future.
And look what's happened just in the last few years. China has become far more brazen in progressing their agenda. And yes, it was the extraordinarily aggressive take on Hong Kong and clamping down on any sense of democracy in Hong Kong. It's a communist government, let's be clear. It's using their economic might in order to project their will around the world. And it is not just saber-rattling, but they're building a land bridge to Taiwan. And Taiwan's future is hugely strategic. And so this is a real issue. I am glad that we're watching our congressional oversight committees jump in. It is bipartisan. What's been most interesting is to watch this no longer be a Republican issue, but to be a bipartisan issue. I mean, even Chuck Schumer said that we have to unite around our strategy to deal with the CCP.
Well, you know what we cover here on CNBC. What does all this mean for Corporation A, Corporation B, Corporation C, Corporation Nike, Starbucks? I mean, take your pick.
Ford.
Tesla, Apple. Go down the. I mean, it's business as usual. The NBA, it's still business as usual. Does that need to change?
It needs to change in the sense that there are select industries that we must be proactive in making sure we have trusted supply chains in. I mean, you look back at the Inflation Reduction Act and what was trying to be accomplished in the Inflation Reduction Act, which was for the first time to have a view that we need trusted supply chains in electric vehicles and solar panels and wind turbines. You look at what was done in the CHIPS Act and recognizing that we need a trusted semiconductor industry.
Do you like the CHIPS Act? I hate to interrupt you, but you see now that you got to have child care. It's got to be union child care, basically. I mean, across the board, it's a Democrat wish list for stuff that they couldn't pass and Build Back Better. And they actually admitted it.
Yeah.
I think Gina Raimondo said, look, these are things Congress didn't do, so we're going to do it here. I mean, you're making a Faustian deal. Would you do it?
Well, the short answer is the skinny CHIPS Act, I was for. The expanded CHIPS Act invades the independence of companies to make decisions for
no buybacks for 5 years?
No buybacks for 5 years in the new CHIPS Act, but will allow Chinese companies to come into the United States and get access to our incentives for EVs.
What does this mean for companies like Intel? Because if you talk to the CEO of Intel, he'll tell you, look, we're ready to roll in Ohio, but I can't get the money. The Commerce Department hasn't sent the checks yet. And if we have all these strings that come attached to it, it puts off the idea that we're actually going to start building chips.
Yeah, we have to get through all the partisan politics and actually press forward with what was promised. And I think Pat's got a great strategy in Ohio. I wish they had come to Virginia. We came close. We're recruiting companies like that to Virginia. But the money needs to flow because this is the investment that has to happen now. And part of our challenge is the pace it takes to build capacity to compete. And we find ourselves at this moment where we know we need to build semiconductor capacity. We know we need to build electric vehicle battery capacity. We know we need to build solar panel technology capacity and turbine capacity. But we're diddling around on the edges and making it hard to do this. I'll repeat, though, we need trusted supply chains. And the big challenge that we're seeing is that when things get tough with regards to what I would call their political agenda, the progressive Democrats break. I mean, if something's going to stand in the way of their progressive agenda, then they'll break and they'll compromise. We cannot compromise. We have to move fast. We have to move with certainty. And we have to recognize that the Chinese government does this in their home market. I mean, when I was at Carlisle, the Chinese government demonstrated clearly that they were going to have a protectionist approach to their home market. And now what they're doing is they're exporting imperial economics, and they are pressing around the world in order to inject their philosophy, which, let's remind ourselves, is communism, not democracy. They don't play by the same rules we do.
So what's strategic for you? This is a broader question. We talk about business. There may be certain industries and supply chain issues that you care about. Do you think financial services companies and big investment firms like BlackRock and Bridgewater and Carlyle and others should be investing in businesses in China? Should that be off limits? Should Starbucks be in China? Is that good for America? Is it not good for America? Should Nike be there? Should Apple be there? I mean, it goes back to Joe's question, but which are the businesses that you say, this is fine and I'm cool with it? This is a business I'm not cool with? Is it business by business, or is it, you know what, we just don't like the whole thing?
Yeah, well, first of all, I do believe that if businesses want access to the Chinese domestic market, they're going to play by Chinese rules. And we, in fact, have to establish what our rules are. And there are strategic sectors that must, in fact, be managed in a way that bad actors aren't allowed to invade the supply chain. And we know those sectors. So it's not shoes. Right, it's not shoes, but it is semiconductors.
But is investing in China unto itself and being in business in China unto itself either a problem? Is it? And the reason I ask this is, you know, we have businesses, U.S. businesses, that get involved in politics and other social issues here in the United States, and then people say, well, you know, this makes no sense. How could they be saying this if they're actually doing business in China, where they're playing by, as you just said, the Chinese rules? And by playing by the Chinese rules unto itself, does that give sort of either cover or license or just even, you know, something else to China that you think strategically is not the right idea?
Well, first of all, I believe in free markets, and I do believe that at the end of the day, consumers will choose what products they want to buy and who they want to do business with, and they will discipline companies to be consistent with values that consumers hold dear.
Oh my God, sounds like ESG.
And that is the big challenge that we've got right now, which is, in fact, in China, the government is saying you will do business our way. And by the way, we know their way. Their way is to not only foster but to steal intellectual property and then send it back.
But that's why the conundrum is I can believe in free markets, right? The idea that a business but then you're going to go do business in a country that doesn't believe in free markets. And is that right? This is a philosophical question.
But Andrew, the reality is that, you know, our economy's 25 plus trillion and China's 22, 23 trillion. Mm-hmm. And these economies are, in fact, intertwined. Right. That's why we have to be very specific about sectors that we are not going to allow the Chinese government to invade.
He just mentioned ESG.
No, did you see Chuck Schumer's piece today? It's the same thing you say, that it's the sharedholders that are pushing these companies to embrace ESG, and therefore it is a free market. You and Chuck, no.
I'm not.
Hold on. But we only got a minute. But we only have a minute left, and I just want to. Why are you in New York? Do you come here often?
I come here occasionally. I'm recruiting companies.
Will you come back here so we can talk? Because you got to come back before 2024. But while we have a minute left, I do want to ask you about 2024. We had former Vice President Pence on, and we talked about him, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, whomever. He said Republican voters will pick the right candidate. Did you see some of the recent polls that are just out? Donald Trump's up again. Do you think Donald Trump is the right nominee in 2024? And if the Republican primary voters pick him, will you support?
Well, so first of all, I'm going to support the Republican nominee.
Whoever it is.
Whoever
okay.
it is.
Do you think it should be?
Well, here's what I do know.
President Trump?
In historic primary races, the early leaders oftentimes are not the ultimate winner. And in fact, in 2016, Donald Trump at this stage was hardly in the running.
But he had a plurality, which he could have again if there's 5, 6, 7. Are you going to be a candidate?
I am focused on Virginia right now. I'm always humbled by this topic. I've been doing this for 2 years now.
Right.
And I do think the reason why people are asking this question of me is because the issues that I'm dealing with in Virginia are the same issues that the nation's dealing with.
It's a blue state that you won.
And we're winning. I mean, we're driving our economic development. We're driving education to a new place and raising the ceiling and the floor. We're making sure that law enforcement is supported, not demeaned.
And you're doing it nicely, right, Becky?
We're doing it in a successful way in a state that truly is purple. And we've got a Democrat-controlled Senate.
It's a bluish purple.
Yeah, well, it's
like
so today.
All that money is seeping into it from.
So today. We were able in 2021 to elect a Republican governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. We took back our house.
Everyone's shock and chagrin on the other side, but it was Terry McAuliffe. You had that going for you.
Well, I think we brought alive a view in Virginia that we could do better. And it really wasn't Republicans versus Democrats. It was all of a sudden a moment where parents came together and said, I want a better education for my children, and I'm tired of being pushed out of my kid's life. Yeah. It was communities coming together and said, I'm so tired of the murder rate going up all the time. It was businesses coming together and saying, I'm tired of anti-business regulations.
See, now it sounds like you're running.
It's people coming together saying, we want Virginia to be better.
You promise that next time you're here, you'll be sitting here again,
Absolutely.
Jacketless?
Absolutely.
Governor Youngkin, thank you.
Great. Thanks all three of you. Appreciate you.
Look at him booking guests on the set, no less.
Yeah. It's in our best interest to hear from everyone.